I've been in the business since I was 15, working for my grandmother's place. She cooked, I cleaned and waitressed. And cleaned some more. Teresita, no solamente lo tenemos limpio, sino también seguro. No algunas veces, sino todo el tiempo. People worry about growing up and becoming their mothers. I worry about growing up and becoming my grandmother. It doesn't matter if it was my grandmother's place, the steakhouse, or the seafood place I've worked since then, or here in my own restaurant. We have a real responsibility to protect our customers.
I don't care if you're a dishwasher, busboy, maintenance worker, or hostess. We all have a very serious obligation that begins when the deliveries come in the back door to the time the customer walks out the front door smiling.
No. It starts before that. Our obligation starts the moment we get ready to come to work. Food safety is important for all our customers, but what you may not realize is that some people have a higher risk of contracting foodborne illness than others.
Especially those with weaker immune systems, like pregnant women, the very young, and the elderly. You can't take anything for granted in this business, and a few simple steps can go a long way towards keeping food safe. A foodborne illness outbreak can do a lot of harm to a lot of people. Customers and co-workers can get sick and even make others sick. And then the consequences just pile up. You lose your customers. You lose your reputation. Your place becomes a joke, and morale goes right down the drain. You can get sued and embarrassed by the media. Your people can lose their jobs, and you can lose your business. That's a big responsibility.
When you come right down to it, following food safety practices is not only the right thing to do, it's the only thing to do. Not some of the time, not most of the time, but all of the time. There's a couple of things that are absolutely key to food safety.
You have to know what a foodborne illness is and how it occurs. You have to know how foods become unsafe. And you have to know what to do as food flows through your operation, step by step, from the back of the house all the way to the front.
Oh, watch out!
Sorry.
Lo siento, Teresa.
Está bien, no te preocupes. Make sure your staff knows what to do, too. That might have cost me a piece of chicken, but in the long run, it might have saved me a bundle.
Hey, Teresa.
But dropping food on the floor is by no means the only way a person can get sick. There's a whole list of hazards out there that can make food unsafe.
And you can put these hazards into 3 groups: biological, physical, and chemical. Most foodborne illness is caused by biological hazards, microorganisms that are so small they can be seen, tasted, or smelled.
There's 4 types of microorganisms that can contaminate food: bacteria, viruses, parasites, and fungi.
The biggest culprit in foodborne illness is bacteria, and in order to grow, they need food, low acidity, oxygen, moisture, a little time, and the right temperatures. In short, just about any conditions that can support life. Once bacteria begins to grow, it's like a rapid chain reaction, and if someone eats that food, an illness can develop. Foods that allow microorganisms to grow are called potentially hazardous foods. The list is pretty long, and it covers just about everything most establishments use. It includes fish, poultry, meat, and dairy products. Foods such as cut melons, sprouts, and cooked vegetables are also potentially hazardous.
There's other biological hazards to watch for, too, like some of the toxins found in seafood. And since we can eliminate them by cooking, it's very important to purchase these items from approved suppliers.
The other hazards to be careful of are physical ones, like the things that accidentally find their way into your customers' meals: toothpicks, metal shavings, hair, bones, bits of plastic. Food can also be contaminated by chemicals that have spilled onto the food.
And some foods can cause severe or fatal allergic reactions in people. Make sure that you and your staff can answer questions regarding the ingredients in your food.
Let me tell you about the 3 factors that directly cause foods to become unsafe: time and temperature abuse, cross-contamination, and poor personal hygiene. To prevent time and temperature abuse, it's crucial to remember the temperature danger zone. You're in the danger zone whenever the temperature of a potentially hazardous food falls between 41 and 140 degrees Fahrenheit, or 5 and 60 degrees Celsius. Foods cannot spend more than 4 hours in that dangerous range. In the temperature danger zone, microorganisms can reproduce very rapidly. Thousands can grow in just an hour. Another cause of foodborne illness is cross-contamination. This occurs when microorganisms are transferred from one food or surface to another, carried by either utensils, hands, or other foods.
And the biggest cause of foodborne illness? Poor personal hygiene, whether it's through forgetfulness, neglect, or just being too busy. People are the major culprits when it comes to food contamination.
At home or on the job, people that don't wash their hands properly or often enough are the biggest contamination risks. They're the biggest contributors to foodborne illness.
You know, you run the highest risk when you're busy. That's when good habits start to slide a little. So I'm always after my people to wash their hands. They kid me about it, but they know I'm serious.
But hand washing isn't the only thing. You can also contaminate food by working when you're sick, not covering cuts properly, and not removing jewelry. Watches too. There's also the people who smoke and don't realize they've contaminated their hands. There's traces of saliva on the cigarette, and that gets on their fingers. More than likely, they don't wash their hands afterwards.
That must be the delivery. Alfredo, recíbela, por favor.
When you look at how food flows through your operation, handling deliveries properly is absolutely critical. And I'm not just talking about checking the count. The first thing to remember is that you cannot improve the quality or the safety of the food after you've already received and signed for it. So start by checking every delivery. If the food doesn't meet your standards, send it back. You're not only making sure you're getting what you paid for, you're inspecting the deliveries for possible problems. Check everything for proper temperature, appearance, proper labeling, and signs of mishandling. Food should flow quickly into storage immediately after receiving. Don't leave deliveries sitting around. Then, make certain you store everything properly to prevent cross-contamination. When you prep foods, make sure you limit the amount of time they spend in the temperature danger zone. Then, handle the food properly to prevent contamination. The next step is cooking. Always use calibrated thermometers to ensure that you have cooked foods to the required internal temperature. When you're holding cooked food, make sure it's covered and held at 140 degrees Fahrenheit, 60 Celsius, or higher. If you're holding cold foods, check to be certain the temperature is 41 Fahrenheit, 5 Celsius, or lower. While serving, take care not to touch the food or anything that comes in contact with it. When it comes to cooling, remember that food must be cooled rapidly. You can use ice water baths, blast chilling, or ice paddles, whatever works for you.
And be just as careful when reheating. Reheat food for hot holding to 165 degrees 74 Celsius for a minimum of 15 seconds within 2 hours. Whatever you do, always remember the basics of food safety. Keep things clean and sanitized.
Have your staff practice good personal hygiene. Make sure they wash their hands thoroughly and frequently. Don't forget about time and temperature abuse, and minimize the amount of time food spends in the temperature danger zone. And make sure you establish practices that prevent cross-contamination of food and anything it comes in contact with.
Just remember, take nothing for granted when it comes to food safety, no matter what your job is. Following proper food safety practices is not only the right thing to do, it's the only thing to do. Like my grandmother said, no algunas veces, sino todo el tiempo.